Dr. Dennis Cuddy. And Dr. Cuddy has certainly taught at the university level. He's been a consultant to industry. He was in the Sydney Department of Education during the Reagan years. He is certainly a writer. He's written a number of books, all of which those are in print. We carry through Radio Liberty, and you can get them, and you must read them, whether they read the Power Elite or certainly the Power Elite, their history and their future. And basically, we hope that you'll get those by calling 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. But we do hope that Dr. Cuddy will be with us because, of course, he always has an excellent commentary on what is really going on behind the scenes. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the media in America is rigidly controlled by 6 major corporations, and that, of course, is AOL Time Warner, Bertelsmann, a German corporation, Viacom, that controls CBS, Disney, that controls ABC, Sydney Comcast, that controls NBC, and then, of course, we have Murdoch, who pretends to be conservative. He owns the Wall Street Journal. Do you think you're getting the conservative point of view when you read the Wall Street Journal? The Wall Street Journal is simply an extension of this small little group that controls the media and largely determines what the American people think and believe. And that's why we do what we do and try to get the information out. And right now we have Dr. Cuddy with us, who will give you not certainly the standard establishment, and believe me, the establishment controls both the right and the left, the conservatives, the liberals, and they give you the impression you hear both sides. You do not. You're hearing one side, and you're never hearing the truth. Dr. Dennis Cuddy, pick up the story.
Okay. Well, it's like you say when you begin the program, the story behind the story, the news behind the news, because that's what I try to do in my articles, books. I was just here on the East Coast looking at ABC's World News Tonight. They're pretty standard. They're talking about D-Day, and they're playing the tape of FDR talking about, our patriotic heroes and so forth. And I'm thinking to myself, you hypocrite. You're the one who got them into this mess and knew about Pearl Harbor in advance and were going to give away to Uncle Joe Stalin, as they used to call him then. He was our ally, Uncle Joe, the butcher, the guy with the 5-year programs that slaughtered his own people by the millions, Uncle Joe. So anyway, he made the deal he said, be quiet about this, Joe, because in 1944 I'm running for re-election, and there's a lot of Polish Americans who might not like this. But what FDR had done, they had meetings like at Yalta and Tehran and so forth. In one of the meetings, he had said, I will give you, after the war, Stalin, I will give you Poland and Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and all that, but, just keep your mouth shut about it. Now, why would he do that? Well, what most people don't realize, and most Americans, because we make a really big deal over a D-Day, and we should, and pay honor to those people, is that about 80% of the Nazis, 80% who were killed by the Russians. They were killed on the Eastern Front to some degree thanks to the winter, the Russian winter. But the Russians felt that they had made, I'm not, sticking up for Joe Stalin, but the fact is, if you're talking about who killed the most Nazis, it was the Russians rather than on the Western Front, the British and Americans and so forth. So that's what Joe was doing. Uncle Joe said, hey, we're killing 80% of these guys. I ought to get something for this. And FDR was getting old and so forth. Said, okay, yeah, whatever. And so that's basically how that happened.
Hold that thought. We'll be back in just a moment with our good friend, Dr. Dennis Cuddy, right here at the Radio Liberty. Well, Dr. Cuddy, you go right ahead.
Okay, so that was one of the reasons why FDR, because FDR was somewhat sympathetic. He made a statement that he had a lot of communist friends, and the Soviets were our allies. So it wasn't like the Cold War had begun and there's all this suspicion and so forth. They were very amicable with each other. And Stalin said, hey, we're killing 80% of the Nazis. What do we get out of this? And so FDR said, yeah, okay, whatever. And so that's how that happened. But the point is, it rankles you. The hypocrisy and the statue we built to FDR. And FDR, I mean, he was also fooling around on his wife like a lot of presidents and others and generals do. I mean, Eisenhower's doing the same thing. He was fooling around on Mamie and so on. And to some extent, it's with our allies. You know, the British used to place their women with our top generals and so forth so that they could spy on us. And we were supposed to be friends, you know, allies cooperating, but they still want to spy on us. And so that's pretty much the name of the game. And that's the whole power elite. That's what they do. They get information. They use information to either cajole or coerce or blackmail or whatever people into doing what they want them to do. And so FDR, at least FDR, Dr. Stan got that letter, November 21, 1933, where you have FDR writing to Colonel House saying the real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that the financial element in our largest centers has owned, not just influenced, owned our government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson. And he says, and I'm not excluding Woodrow Wilson either in this. And he just, matter of fact, said that, and he knew that, and he knew it. Okay, now, picking on up what I usually do in this program is like make comments about contemporary events. And so all of this is not just, you know, I'm going to make a comment on something that's happened, but what I try to do in these books, in my latest book, The Power Elite, Their History and Future, and the previous one, The Secret Nazi Plan, is the Secret Nazi Plan is coming to fulfillment today, and the Power Elite, Their History and Future goes into their history, where they came from, started about 1,000 years ago. I mean, you can go back further, but it was, you know, Knights Templar is a sort of good starting point. And then I look at today and the future, because you can see the way things are and who's planning and doing what and how that they plan way, way, way in advance. And so when I comment on something today, I put it in the context of how it fits into the Power Elite's plan, because oftentimes...
Hold that thought, Dennis. We're going to be back here in just a moment discussing the fact that there really is a master plan,
Yep.
that the things that are taking place today have all been planned long ago to bring about a world government. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and certainly our guest is Dr. Dennis Cuddy, and his book certainly parallel the theme of mine, and basically the fact is that there's been a movement around for 1,000 years or more, and of course really was long before the Knights Templar, but Dr. Cuddy begins it there, and basically these people, these satanic people working behind the scenes, their goal is a one world government, a one world financial system, and the destruction of Christianity. And so they're working behind the scenes, certainly in Europe, and then they come to America in the early 1600s. And basically most people don't even know they're here. America is predominantly a Christian nation, but the subversive element certainly is always there working behind the scenes. And today, that subversive element controls both political parties, the media, the banking, the corporations, the foundations, certainly our churches, certainly our educational system. They control America and are using the financial and military power of the United States, financing terrorism throughout the world to bring about a world government. Dr. Cuddy, pick up the story and go from there.
Yeah, and as I said, the Knights Templar is simply a convenient starting point because they're the first major sort of power broker, huge amounts of money that they would use to control sovereigns, you know, kings and queens and so forth and so on. And it's a link between the East and the West, so you can actually say it's sort of a global thing that they were involved in. Although they weren't in the Far East, they were the conduit, they and the assassins, as to who could go, you know, from Europe to the Far East and so on. So anyway, but yeah, you can go back to that whole Solon in 595 BC and the priests of the temple of Isis in Egypt, and how Plato picked up on that with the philosopher kings, the Aryans, you know, the elite who survived and the knowledgeable ones. And then you come on up even to the French Revolution, where the encyclopedists Rousseau, Diderot, Montesquieu, Condorcet, and then those guys figured they were the modern philosopher kings, and the masses should listen to them rather than some, you know, Louis the whatever, 14, 15, 16, 17, all these Louis and the hereditary elite of that day. And so And, a couple of thousand years ago, around the time of Nero, same thing. Nero, the Roman Empire was sort of controlling the world, the known world as we look at it of the day. Of course, there's Native Americans and so on. But, the known world of the day where there was this empire. And as I've mentioned before, the Roman Colosseum was a psychological thing. They give them circuses, occupy the people, sort of like today with sitcoms and, soap operas and sports and whatever. And that was what he said. The circuses with the jugglers and the acrobats and, the gladiators fighting, and you give the populace a sense of power because when they show up, they give thumbs up or thumbs down as to whether a gladiator is going to live or die. And so all of these psychological techniques are very, very old, very, very old. And the Aryan race, of course, came up into the modern era of Hitler, but Hitler was also part of the plan. Hitler was a nothing. People listen to me say that. What do you mean a nothing? Hitler the Nazis? No, not really. He really wasn't. He was very good and useful for ginning up the crowd. He had been trained by the Thule Society into how to mesmerize. That's the term, means like mass hypnosis. And it can be used for individuals. Anton Mesmer is the guy several hundred years ago that the name is picked up from. He was like the leading hypnotist of that day. And he would mesmerize individuals, especially large crowds. And that's what he was trained to do. Otherwise, he was just a corporal from the First World War. He was a little painter of postcards. And to show you how really out of it he was, at the time of D-Day, about that time, he was like mentally totally divorced from what was going on. And you say, well, what do you mean? He's Hitler the Nazis, the Wehrmacht, and all. No, he wasn't. I mean, we look at him like he's that way, and he's, goose-stepping around and with his arm out and, stretched in a sort of Aryan symbol of, Sieg Heil and that sort of stuff. But I think it was like the morning, or just very, very close to the morning of D-Day, he's ordering some new Nazi bomber to go attack England, as though Normandy's not happening. It's like, and one of the reasons is he was very, very, very distrustful of his own generals. I mean, he didn't trust him. I mean, think of this. Think of we're in a war in, Iraq or whatever, and the president, what is George H.W. Bush, is going to say, I really don't trust my generals. I mean, think of it. A leader of a Wehrmacht, the nation, the Nazi movement, who, and they're in the middle of this fierce war, and he does not trust his own generals. I mean, why are they generals? If he doesn't trust them, why are they generals? They're generals because he doesn't know diddly about military actions. They would put these plans before him, and he'd sort of, yes, well, I see, yes, okay, I approve this, and we'll go over here and do this, that, and the other. But I'm just giving this as an example of how he was out of it. I mean, he was not in control of this stuff. So anyway, that's the secret Nazi plan. The leading generals, the German general staff, who have been around forever. I mean, they lose wars, they win wars. It doesn't matter. The German general staff goes on because the German people had great confidence in the German general staff. Whether it's World War I or prior to that, Wilhelm and then and Bismarck or whatever it is. So you have you guys like Martin Bormann, the party chief, Heinrich Himmler, the SS head, and some key members of the German general staff. They are the ones. They are the ones who are running the thing. And everybody makes the big day over D-Day, and it was. And there was a great deal of sacrifice by a lot of young, patriotic, national, good American young men and women. And that should not be diminished at all. But the fact is that up until the late 30s, in 1941, they put the Nazi, the brains, Himmler, Bormann, those German general staff, put their best people into the war effort. But when the secret plan came about, which for some reason nobody wants to talk about, they keep talking about Hitler survived. And my response is, yeah, okay, so this corporal, postcard painter who didn't trust his own generals and didn't know diddly survived. Big deal. Whatever. But everybody's making a big deal of it when they should be. They should be looking at the secret Nazi plan, because that isn't just something that was, that is. It is coming back. I keep wanting to shake people by the collar. Don't you understand what's going on today? And the way that worked was in the secret Nazi plan, which was begun right after Pearl Harbor, 1942, and implemented in 43, is they started taking their best people out of the war effort. So when people make a big deal over the Allied triumph against the Nazis, they were triumphing against second and third and fourth stringers. You got to appreciate that. The best Nazis were taken out of the war effort beginning in 1942-43. Got it? Okay. Try and remember this, people. All right. Now, moving up.